Good morning, everybody. We are here in the Digital Center with the representative of Kaka downtown and Moana, Representative Coco Iwamoto. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Of course. And we are talking about the opening of the new legislative session and what lawmakers are looking forward to. So, second time in, what have you learned and what are you looking forward to for the new session?
Thank you. Well, there's lots of issues in the news right now. One of them is just generally housing insecurity and how do we raise or make sure we have the tax revenue to support those social safety nets? So that's one of the issues I want to work on. So I don't know if a lot of your viewers realize this, but the legislative session is actually 2 years. So yes, last year was the first of two. So all the bills that I introduced last year, if they didn't move as much as I hoped they would, they're still technically alive and they can still continue to move. So some of the bills that I've been working on was a empty homes GET surcharge. As you may know, according to the U.S. Census, we have tens of thousands of empty homes, like maybe 70,000 empty homes across the state of Hawaii. These are real estate investments. Many of them are owned by out-of-state investors, and they just leave them empty. Meanwhile, we have families who can't afford rent, so they're moving to Vegas. So there's a disconnect there. So what are the policies that we have as a state government that are encouraging this kind of out-of-state investment, and how do we disincentivize? One of the ways is to actually impose a GET surcharge on these empty homes. So I'm a renter in my district. When I pay my rent to my landlord, he actually pays his general excise tax to the state and the county. And so that revenue is collected and it pays for services like roads and schools and everything, right? So these investors are actually making money off of a property that they'll sell in a couple years, but they're not contributing really anything day to day to our tax revenue. So if you're going to leave it empty, we're still going to collect the tax as if you rented it, number one. So don't deny us the tax when you've already benefited, because all of the materials to build your condo or your home traveled on state and county roads, right? And they went through our ports. So taxpayers funded helped fund the infrastructure that allowed you to make this money eventually when you sell.
So they should contribute.
And here's the other thing that people don't realize. When people aren't paying their fair share of taxes, like these out-of-state investors, guess what? It falls on the rest of us who are here paying our taxes. So it's really, really unfair in that sense. So collecting GET that would have been collected had somebody been paying rent there, and then also calculating how much a family, say it's a 3-bedroom apartment on the 35th floor of a luxury condo building. Well, how much does that kind of economic family of that economic status, how much money do they spend in the community, going to the grocery store, getting their hair done, getting coffee? All of those transactions generate general excise tax. And so we can actually calculate what that amount of GET is that's collected, and we should collect that from the landowner or whoever the investor is.
So this makes sense as you're explaining it, right? So my question then is, what was the challenge in pushing that forward last session?
Was we saw the county tried to do an empty homes tax, and they failed. And this is why I'm like, well, let's the state try. I'm not sure. I don't know, because most of these out-of-state investors aren't voters, right? So you're like, what's going on? And I did speak to developers. Developers, Howard Hughes specifically, and I said, and they're a huge developer in my district, and I said, are you guys against this empty home tax? They're like, not necessarily, because we also own the real estate for all the stores and all the storefronts and all the restaurants. And if the buildings are vacant, who's eating at the restaurants, right? So
it would make sense.
Yes, so they would actually benefit as well. So I'm not sure. There's a hesitancy. It's a new idea. And I think there's a lot of people in positions of power in our legislature who, because it's not their idea, or because it's a new idea, they're a little hesitant to give it some airtime.
Actually, you bring up a good point, interesting point, kind of the background culture of the legislature that you learned as the freshman
Yes.
legislator coming in last year. How have you learned to navigate that this year?
Right.
What's your approach this year?
Well, no, what's been really kind of shocking is how everyone is so comfortable with a few individuals having all the power. Having where one individual, say maybe it's a committee chair, having the power to pass or kill a bill unilaterally, right, or to wave it through a committee, which means it just keeps moving. And there's insufficient amounts of representational democracy. We're all, at least for the House, there are 51 representatives, right? We were all duly elected by citizens, right? And mostly by the same amount of citizens, because each district, 51 district, it's divided by the amount of population. So you would think that we should all have equal say on every bill,
Laws.
but right,
Yeah.
and what happens is we don't, and this to me is the crux of why what we're seeing right now is the whole corruption scandal, the investigation, the question about which influential legislator received the $35,000 in this brown paper bag, right? So and the question isn't just who it was, but one of the questions that we should be asking these two legislators who went to prison, hey, tell us, like an exit interview, what were the dynamics of the legislature that made you think that you could collect this money and single-handedly deliver for the person who's asking for your to kill her
Support
bill.
or your vote,
Right.
yeah.
So how is it that one person can have all this power so the money gets funneled in? And this is what we need to undo. We need to actually analyze and say, hey, this is a problem when one person can kill a bill. Of course, in the corrupt people who have to make money off of bills passing or getting killed, then why wouldn't they send money to that one person to act in this certain way?
Yeah.
So we need to dismantle that whole system of unilateral power over specific bills.
Yeah. And this is why you have said in the past that this is one of your goals for
Right.
good governance, kind of an investigation into this
Yes.
particular
Yes,
case.
and also I think it's important to note, around 28 or 29 of the 51 of us were not there, and actually we came in the aftermath of this corruption scandal. So I feel like those of us who came in after are kind of like, wait a minute, this is a new day. Let's do things differently and correctly. So I'm just waiting for people to catch up to this kind of vision, this possibility, because there's a lot of people who are like get into the space and they're like, ooh, I just want to learn how to do this. I'm like, but don't learn the bad way. Like,
Break the habits now.
Break the habits now.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, don't get indoctrinated.
That's
yeah.
actually a good thing. This fresh blood. Are you seeing that manifest? Are you seeing that these new fresh faces, new fresh approaches are actually being taken
Well,
seriously?
one thing that happened I think was interesting for a lot of people was the finance chair used to be Kyle Yamashita, who is more old school, right? And then he was replaced with somebody who identifies himself to me as a progressive social democrat. Which is Chris Todd, right? So he's now in control of the money committee. So that's a huge kind of, we went from Kyle Yamashita, who was about reducing taxes on the wealthy, to somebody who's more social democrat, like maybe it's okay to make sure that the wealthy pay their fair share so that we can provide the social safety nets to keep people in Hawaii.
Yeah, no, that's a good point and a good segue because we've been talking about potential pause to the historic tax breaks. The governor had
Right.
said that's what he would be pushing this session.
Yes.
What's your stand on that?
Well, yes, I appreciate that that honesty. They've actually been talking about making adjustments even before they right after they signed the bill.
Oh, they're
They
like,
were-
we're gonna change it already.
Yes, I mean, they already knew that it was a performance, right?
Oh, that's a
It was
shame.
a headline-grabbing opportunity to say these are the historic tax cuts never before seen. It was to get the media attention to help the elected incumbents keep their seats.
I see, but it didn't work in your case.
No, it didn't, because I think people saw through it. And I immediately spoke about this. Like, this is all shibai. It's all a performance. It's all smoke and mirrors. They're going to roll it back. And indeed, there's no way we could have sustained that.
Oh,
Do you know
that's.
what I mean?
I feel like
And
a lot of people like applauded that though.
well, and I was really grateful for the financial benefit it's providing to the lower income families and households. But definitely, there are too many tax giveaways that the wealthy are already receiving. And then, they got the wealthy got a lot of federal tax cuts under the first Trump administration, and now with the one big beautiful bill, they get even more. The wealthiest families get even more tax breaks. At the same time, the federal government is sending less money to the states. So why don't we cut out the middleman, which is the federal government, and just collect those taxes locally? So one of the bills I'm introducing this session is a millionaire surtax. So we don't have to tweak this whole tax system. We just overlay a very simple formula that couples who have an earned income every year of more than $1 million pay like 3% additional tax on whatever the tax code says. And then you can just peel this off later when the federal government starts giving us, taxing them correctly or fairly as other households. So that would be kind of the cleanest approach, I think.
So a different approach as opposed to
Just
saying
rolling back.
anyone above 200,000.
Yes.
In 2027 we're going to start.
Right. So there's two
stopping
ways
those.
of doing it. You could just totally change all the calculations, or you can just overlay.
Okay.
the
And your proposal is
existing-
this
Ah,
overlay.
It's
Okay.
simple. It's clean. I don't know. It's another choice.
You would think that having the option would be well received.
Yeah, and so hopefully both, all these bills will get hearings and people can weigh in. And that's the beauty. That's the ideal of a democracy, right? That we have a free discourse of ideas. And we're like, and it's collaborative. It's not like, oh, you hated my idea, I'm going to hate your idea. No, it's like, hey, how can we work together and get the best and most functioning part of each bill and put it together?
Okay. Well, you definitely have hit the main things of housing. You did mention military leases. I wanted to segue into that. Talk to me about what
Yes,
you're
that's a hot topic
focusing on.
issue right
Yes.
now. And actually, a few years ago, I drafted a bill called the Tenants in Good Standing for a senator I was working for. And then when she left, another senator introduced the bill. So this bill has been actively moving through the legislature. And so I introduced my own bill. And it's about tenants in good standing. So I've been a landlord, right? And you don't want to renew a lease if your tenant has been breaking the law using your property. If they are in arrears, meaning financially, if they owe you money, or let's say you have other companies and they owe the other companies money or other parts of your business money. And then finally, so law breaking. I said law breaking, arrears, and they had agreements that they promises MOUs,
Okay.
right? Like they cleaned up. So speaking specifically about the military has actually, it's on record that they violated federal and state laws. Right? While using our lands, they have not upheld MOUs for cleanup of Koholave and other sites that they said they would clean up. And then finally, they're in arrears for payments, not just for the leases per se, but to other agencies. For instance, the U.S. Department of Defense owes the Hawaii Department of Education around $300 million a year in impact aid. So according to the federal government's own formula, they calculate basically, impact aid is about, we have so many military dependents in Hawaii because of all the military bases.
Yeah.
We're impacting the state of Hawaii. We should, for instance, so in education, almost 10% of our student body in the Hawaii Department of Education are dependents of military personnel. And many military families do not declare Hawaii as their state of residency because they don't want to pay taxes here. So they say, Texas, Nevada.
It's the highest tax
Right.
state.
So states that don't have taxes, right, tax income. So they want to have they want to keep the most money for themselves. So meanwhile, there's that, and then they have the military stores, all the retail,
Nexus,
all the things that they buy on base without paying GET. So they're not paying income tax and GET. Guess what? Hawaii, that's how we pay for our education, through income tax and GET. So here we go. We don't have we're paying for their kids to get their education, which is just great and awesome, but they're not contributing to the tax base. So again, it falls on every other resident who pays taxes to pay for the education for these military children. That's why we have impact aid, to say, hey, no doubt we are impacting you guys financially. Here's the money.
But you're saying they
they're
haven't
shortchanging. They owe us
haven't delivered it.
$378 million a year, but they only give us $78 million, and we're supposed to say, "Oh, thank you."
So my question is, why? Why is that happening?
And it's been known for decades. Like, I spoke to Neil Abercrombie when he was in Congress on the government, on the military affairs committees, and he knew about it, and still no one's been pushing it. No one's been, I don't know why. It's frustrating. It's frustrating
There's
because
no
the
collector?
last 20 years since I've been talking about this, it's been like that. $300 million a year adds up to $6 billion in arrears. So this is why I'm like,
is that the bill right now?
I mean,
$6
that's
billion?
what I'm saying the bill is, and
Oh my
it
goodness.
could be, we can verify this. It's verifiable. We can get this information, and then we can say, pay the money you owe us.
So at this
right?
point,
Before
there's
you even
no
talk about
answer
new
to that.
leases, do what's right. Why would we want to get into a lease with you? Okay, so that's a tenants in good standing bill.
Okay.
That was introduced by me last session. This session I'm introducing, and then you heard the governor talking about condemnation, which every time I heard those words, that word coming out of the governor's mouth, it was like, ugh, why are you using the language of the person, of your opponent in this dance or this negotiation? Don't use their words. Tell the people of Hawaii who you represent and the people whose land it is that you're going to challenge and push back. Because when he says condemnation, there's nothing I can do. Well, so I wrote a bill that basically says if the U.S. government or the military begins condemnation proceedings for Hawaii state lands, then we will basically remove any benefit, entitlement, compact that we have embedded in our state statutes and say, okay, well, you're going to behave badly. We're going to remove all of these benefits and entitlements that we've allowed you to take up space in our Hawaii revised statutes. And we're going to remove them. And there's hundreds of them. All of these little perks they get, like for instance, they don't need to pay their car registration. The military personnel don't have to pay car registration. There's all these little things and perks they get and benefits. We're going to say no more. Come right
Until
if they begin this condemnation
process. Yes.
So there needs to be consequences for condemnation, and that's the title of the bill.
Interesting.